Now we've got the tube and the jump ring soldered onto the back of the moth pendant. The next thing to do is to make a catch that's going to go on the opposite side to the tube, and that'll be where the brooch pin clicks into. So I've cut just a piece of sterling silver scrap, and this is about 0.5. You don't want it too thick because it will be awkward to bend, but you don't want it too thin because then it will bend out of shape too easily. So 0.5 or 0.6 is about fine. And I'm going to use a pair of round nose pliers to just start forming a hook shape. Don't want to do a full loop because obviously you're going to need to be able to get the brooch pin in and for it to come back out. I'm just going to loop it a little bit from the back and start to push that around just to close it up. And you can see that that's the sort of shape that we're aiming for. So we want it to be starting to come back in on itself. There'll be space to be able to get the pin through when you click it in, but that will actually trap it in there and it'll keep it from coming back out. We've left a tail on the piece, so you can see from the side. So we've left that tail on there, and that's what we're going to solder onto the back plate now. So we want to have this opposite to the piece of tube, and we want to have it so that the pin will be from this side. So when I put the wire in, you'll see the pin's going to go down and come up this way, and then it will lock down into that piece. So we want to make sure that it's roughly level with the other piece. I'll just move that down a bit. I'll push it around. We want to have it so that it's going to come up and then come back down slightly, and that will be because we're going to put an adapter on here so that you can actually wear it as a pendant as well. So I think that will probably be about the right spot. So again, we're going to get this piece heated up, get the flux on there so that we can see where to put the solder in, and then we'll get the solder in and hopefully get this soldered in so it's nice and well attached. So I'm just heating the piece up there again. I don't want to get it up massively hot because I don't want the other solder to run particularly. And to solder this secondary piece in, this little hook, I'm going to use easy solder, just so that it'll get up to heat and solder slightly faster. Just get a nice coat of spray flux on there. And it just means you end up with less cleanup. Okay, so I'm just going to take this piece off to one side slightly and put some pieces of easy solder in. Oops. Again, these are quite small pieces, so we'll put 4 in, that should work. There we go. And then we just pop the hook back in so it's in the same position. Oops. Just try and get that lined up where it was. Looks about right. And we'll go back in with the torch and get that soldered into place. I'm just going to move the torch around, focusing on the back plate more than the hook. There we go, just saw the solder flow around to the side and you saw the hook drop into place, so that's great. So we'll just pop that back into the pickle again to get that cleaned up, and then we will form the brooch pin to go into the back. We've got the back plate out of the pickle and we've got the hook soldered on one side and we've got the tube soldered on the other. So the next thing to do is to make the brooch pin. I'm using a piece of 0.8mm stainless steel wire. Again, you can use sterling silver wire if you want to make this fully silver. You'd need to either buy spring hard wire or work harden the wire by twisting it, because you do need it to be able to hold some tension, and it's obviously got to support the weight of the piece when you're using it as a brooch pin. So the first thing to do is to just bend one end of the pin into a right angle. I'm going to use a pair of parallel pliers to do this. Okay, so I just want to make a right angle bend. There we go. And then we can see that that will thread up through the tube. So we can already see that this is going to be too long, so I will trim that down with a pair of end cutters that I don't use for silver. Don't use your best cutters when you're trying to cut steel wire because it will ruin them. Before I bend this side round, I'm just going to check the angles and see if I need to move this wire at all. So we'll just put it through the pin. So you can see it's got some tension on there, which is great, and that will keep it in place. Okay, so I'm going to just pull this back out. Makes it a bit awkward because it's so long. I cannot get my hands out of the way. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Because that was really awkward, what I'm going to do is change the angle slightly here just to pull this back up so it's not got quite as much downward tension, and that will make it easier to get the pin back in and out. So I'll just take that piece out again. And I'm just going to bend this a bit further back this way. And then we should see that that is easier to manoeuvre, hopefully. I'll just check that back in there. Yeah, that might be slightly too much, but again, we can just retension that in a minute. The next thing I'm going to do is bend this top part down so that it actually fixes into place. So to do that, again, I'm going to use a pair of parallel pliers. I'll use a slightly thinner pair. I'm just going to grab the end of the wire. And this is where you test if your soldering's done well. So I'm going to bend this back round. So I'm going to bend this back round here. So we just start to pull that round. Just turn around a bit. I'm actually pulling that against the tube so we can tell that's soldered in place nicely because it's not popping off. There we go. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to change the angle that this is at. So instead of this sticking up and this piece being flat to the back, we want to reverse that. So that's actually sticking down and this is raised up a little bit. So the reason that we do that is because it puts a little bit more tension onto this piece of wire here, which helps to hold it into the clasp because it's always trying to kind of kick upwards and it'll keep it locked in place. And the other thing is, if you've got a little bit of a gap in between the pin and the back, it makes it a lot easier to get it through fabric. So to do that, we'll just move this piece out, and then I'm going to basically just reverse this. So I'm going to use my pliers to pull this piece down and to lift that piece up slightly. So we'll just, oops, centre that and move that across, just twist that down. You'll see that when you put that down, that piece is sticking up slightly. So I'm just going to do that a little bit more, just so it's got a bit more of definition in there. So again, I'm just going to hold that and twist it towards me. There we go, that's better. So you can see that's at quite an angle now, but when we put that in and lock it, it's nice and secure in there because it's higher up towards the top of the clasp, meaning that it's keeping it in place nicely. So I'm going to trim the end of this wire now because we don't want it sticking all the way out, and I'm probably going to trim it so it's just about to the edge here. So I should just get my pair of end cutters and I'll get that trimmed off, and then I'm going to just slightly round the end using a buff stick. You don't want it really sharp, you just want it so that it's going to go through fabric but it's not going to injure you.